In this video, I'll be talking about a few really cool looking 3D virtual tabletops and 3D map makers for RPGs. You've got tools like Menhir, Dungeon Alchemist, Tailspire, Tabletop Simulator, Adventure Architect, Game Master Engine, whatever the one D&D thing is going to be. And there are even more out there. I started a list on my website and I'll stick a link to that right up there, but feel free to shout out others you know of down in the comments and maybe I'll add them to that list. Now, I'm not going to do a breakdown of each one of these in this video. Rather, I'll be sharing my thoughts on 3D RPG maps and VTTs as a whole, with a focus on why these are so attractive at first glance, but also
the dark side of 3D VTTs.
Why I find their popularity a little concerning. Along the way, I will shout out certain aspects of some of them that I find particularly promising or problematic. First off, let's just get the basic attraction here out of the way. When these tools are done right, they just look cool. If you're window shopping on RPG Street, these apps are going to draw you in. When the graphics are good and the lighting effects are there, man, they look great. I think the best looking are probably 1D&D, Menhir, Tailspire, and Dungeon Alchemist. The trailers for these tools look stellar, and when I first saw each of them, I just wanted to get in there and play some RPGs. Others were definitely less attractive. But once I get past the glamour and really start to think about the experience of playing with these 3D maps, some potential problems come to mind. I'm not talking about playing on a computer. I get that some people have a problem with that and want to keep tabletop RPGs on actual tabletops. There's a purity there that I can respect and definitely relate to, but I'm not talking about that, as I've been playing RPGs with friends online since 2014 and I don't plan to stop. I'm talking about how the movement from playing theater of the mind, like I have with friends online for years, or playing on very simple 2D maps online, which I've also done for years, moving from those styles of play to this is making a leap too far into video game territory. Like Menhir here looks amazing, but it absolutely has the feel of a video game. I haven't tried it, it's not finished or available yet, but I'm not sure I like this blurring the line between video games and D&D. I think it might alter the expectations of new players and change our mindsets and the way we play in negative ways. This is actually one of the reasons I was happy to see one D&D's trailer talking about the ways they were trying to give their upcoming tool the feel of an actual tabletop with miniatures, keeping it tactile rather than trying to make you feel like you are there. I also like how a lot of these apps keep the characters on bases. I think this holdover from actual tabletops is good, but I still have concerns. Now, in addition to these tools potentially making RPGs too video gamey, I think that sometimes when you get representations of the game that are trying to be more realistic, more immersive, it can actually somewhat limit your imagination. When a video game is realistic, it is more immersive, and I think that's a strength. But the strength of tabletop RPGs, in my opinion, is that there is more imaginative freedom and an emphasis on creativity. Both game masters and players can improvise and collaborate as they describe the world together. When it's already so detailed, it can kind of shut down that aspect of the game. There are some positives for sure, but I think imagination is so much more powerful than a game engine, and in full and detailed 3D, our imaginations kind of shut off a bit, and you might miss out on something cool. With these tools, there's just less blank space for your imagination to fill in. I think that's one of the main reasons we're often disappointed by screen adaptations of our favorite books. Our imaginations have taken the author's words and done some heavy lifting to create something epic, and it's hard for a film with a budget and deadlines to live up to that. Likewise, if a game master has dreamed up and imagined some cool new things, I think it's actually going to be really hard to fully realize that in any of these 3D VTTs. Now, I think you could argue that having miniatures and terrain or highly detailed 2D maps can have the same impact. I think that's true. But if we're talking about 3D terrain and minis, first off, I think you can manipulate things a lot better and you have a lot more freedom to kind of throw things on the table and just tweak things with your hands. And secondly, I think most of us know that you should remain flexible and do some encounters without maps and minis, just describing scenes in theater of the mind. I think GMs with 3D VTTs should keep that in mind too. Still be flexible and don't feel like every moment of the game needs to be in this interface. Use the 3D maps as a tool, but don't let it limit your imagination. Maybe we just need to use them for some of the larger set piece moments, as we often do with 3D crafted terrain on the table. Another issue in terms of being able to realize our creative visions, it's just harder for 3D maps with 3D characters and 3D monsters to have a huge library of assets. It takes more people, more hours to create. And it's not going to be as easy as it is with 2D maps, where I can find hundreds of maps in moments, whether going to Google image search or certain subreddits. I can quickly throw some tokens together with Token Stamp Editor or just Google image search and find tokens. I can easily improv this stuff and throw it together while my players are arguing about strategy or figuring out their marching order. A lot of the 3D RPG tools I've seen don't have these huge libraries of stuff, and when you try to build things to match what you're imagining, I think most of the time you're just going to come up short. A lot of these Tailspire builds end up looking like Minecraft maps. The architecture styles in a lot of these applications look samey, and a GM skillfully describing a location will be able to paint a much more varied and exotic picture of how this tavern or cave or town is distinct from these other ones, better than you'll be able to match in these 3D applications. After a few sessions, I think things are going to start to look the same. I think players are going to notice that. On the other hand, me just drawing stuff on my Chessex mat often is not going to be much to look at, but the goal usually isn't eye candy. It's basic positioning, and the imagination is really good at filling in the gaps when the GM describes things well. Again, it's a trade-off because this does look cool, but I think it would feel repetitive after a while. If you have used 3D RPG maps, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and what your experience has been, because I've only had a little bit of experience with them. Another concern I've already alluded to is the increased time required for GMs to prepare in 3D. I've spent some time with a couple of these applications, mostly Tailspire, and I found it to be kind of a slow process and a bit frustrating. I'm sure that after dozens of hours it would get a lot easier for me, but it's still quite a lot of work. I will say I was really impressed with the website Tales Tavern for Tailspire, which allows you to load up maps people have already built amazingly quick. I was expecting to have to go to this website and download the file and put it in just the right folder and then exit the program and reload it, and then I can open from that location, but it's actually just 2 clicks on the website if you already have Tailspire loaded. It's great. Another valuable feature I see in both Menhir and Dungeon Alchemist is the ability to have things built for you procedurally. This seems really handy if you don't want to put in all that time and you're not super specific about what you need. And of course, you can always take that procedurally generated thing and then customize it on your own afterwards. Now, a final concern I know a lot of people have expressed is pricing. I especially noticed this in the comments of my 1D&D video a while back. And yeah, I'm holding my breath on that one too. I really want it to be affordable. However, I am encouraged by the pricing I see on some of these applications. Menhir especially is saying that it will be free as long as it's around. Most of the things you can pay for are just minor cosmetic upgrades. Tailspire is only $25, but it is a bummer that every player needs to own it to play. So I'm not too concerned about pricing for most of these apps, but I won't be surprised if Wizards of the Coast, for their official 1D&D thing, does go with a subscription model that costs quite a lot more than the others. And hey, maybe it will be worth it. I'm going to withhold judgment for now, but as I've already said, I'm concerned. I'm not freaking out about 3D VTTs as much as I see some people doing. Remember, no one is going to take your RPG books away and make you and your friends stare at screens instead. So just calm down. But yeah, if you're a bit worried about how these admittedly really cool looking tools could affect our beloved hobby, I'm with you. I am concerned. Thanks for joining me for this one. I would love to hear your thoughts on any of this down in the comments below. And before we go, I do want to draw your attention to 2 ways you can support what I do here if you like my videos. One is you can buy your RPG goodies through my affiliate links. I've got a bunch of different companies I work with, and I'll put links down in the video description. And 2, you can become a patron. These amazing people support the channel on a monthly basis, and I couldn't do it without them. So if you want to join with them and get some pretty cool rewards, things like weekly live map drawing streams and access to campaign diaries where I talk about my ongoing games, you can check it all out over at patreon.com/WASD20. All right, that's going to do it for this one, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care. You'll see me again very soon.